Yesterday morning, my ex-husband's family had security go through my bags on their front lawn, checking if I'd stolen their silverware while 20 neighbors filmed with their phones. They dumped out my daughter's baby photos, her first shoes, our family memories, all while announcing I was the help who couldn't be trusted. What they didn't know was that I had $450 million sitting in my bank account, watching them reveal exactly who they really were. My name is Willa Jackson. I'm 35 years old, and for 3 years I let the Harrison family treat me like dirt while I scrubbed toilets as a janitor, all while hiding the biggest lottery win in Seattle's history. What happened when they finally pushed me too far will show you why money doesn't change people. It just reveals who they've always been. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. The Harrison family owned 15 boutique hotels across the Pacific Northwest, with a combined net worth of $50 million. They lived in a 7-bedroom mansion overlooking Lake Washington, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and treated anyone making less than 6 figures like they were invisible. I'd been married to their son Daniel for 8 years before our divorce 5 years ago. During our marriage, I'd been the perfect daughter-in-law, organizing their charity events, managing their household staff, even helping Daniel get his MBA while I put my own career on hold. But after the divorce, when I took a janitor position at the Emerald Tower to support myself and Emma, I went from family member to family embarrassment overnight. The Emerald Tower stood 45 stories tall in downtown Seattle's financial district. Every night from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., I cleaned the executive floors, the same floors where Seattle's millionaires and billionaires made deals that shaped the city. My monthly paycheck of $2,800 barely covered our rent and Emma's expenses, but I showed up every shift, pushed my cart through those marble hallways, and listened to the Harrison family tell anyone who'd listen how I'd fallen so far. What they didn't know was that I held an MBA from the University of Washington, the same degree Daniel had, except I'd graduated summa cum laude while he'd barely scraped by with a 2.8 GPA. I'd hidden my education because I knew the moment they discovered it, they'd find new ways to humiliate me. "All that education," Richard would say, "and you're still just mopping floors." But I had my reasons for staying silent. Very good reasons. The first sign of how little they thought of me came at Emma's parent-teacher conference at Evergreen Academy last September. The private school charged $45,000 a year in tuition, money that came from Emma's education trust, not the Harrisons, though they let everyone believe otherwise. Margaret Harrison arrived in her white Mercedes, wearing a St. John's suit that probably cost more than I made in 2 months. When Mrs. Peterson, Emma's teacher, asked about Emma's family situation, Margaret's response cut through me like ice. "Oh, Willa helps our family with various tasks," Margaret said with a dismissive wave, not even looking at me. "She's been with us for years in different capacities. We make sure Emma maintains her connection with her, of course. It's important for children to understand all levels of society." The other parents, tech executives, surgeons, hedge fund managers, suddenly found reasons to step away from our little circle. One mother actually moved her designer purse to her other arm when I walked past, as if poverty might be contagious. Emma found me in the parking lot afterward, tears streaming down her face. "Why did Grandma say you're the help? You're my mom!" I held her close, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "Baby, sometimes people show you who they really are when they think no one important is watching." "But you are important," she insisted, her green eyes, so like her father's, but filled with actual love, searching mine for answers I couldn't give yet. That night, I sat in my 1-bedroom apartment, looking at the lottery ticket hidden in my safe, and wondered how much longer I could keep this secret. How much more damage would the Harrisons do to Emma's spirit before I finally revealed the truth? 2 months later, the family's cruelty reached new heights during their annual Christmas card photo shoot. The photographer they'd hired, someone fancy from Bellevue, who charged $2,000 for a session, had set up in the Harrisons' living room with professional lights and a backdrop of their floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. "All right, let's get the family together," the photographer announced, arranging Richard and Margaret in the center, with Daniel beside them. "Young lady, come stand by your father." Emma grabbed my hand. "Come on, Mom." The photographer looked confused, glancing between me and my simple black dress and the Harrisons in their coordinated designer outfits. Richard cleared his throat. "Could we get just the Harrisons now? For the official card?" The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. Daniel stared at his shoes. Margaret adjusted her pearls. Emma's hand tightened in mine. "I'm not taking a picture without Mom," Emma said, her 12-year-old voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "Emma, darling," Margaret cooed. "We need one for the business associates, you understand." "No, I don't understand," Emma's voice cracked. "She's my mother." Richard's face darkened. "We'll take both versions. Now stop making a scene." So they did. One version with me standing awkwardly at the edge, looking like the hired help who'd accidentally wandered into frame. Another with just the real Harrisons, the ones who mattered. Later I found Emma in her room at my apartment, carefully cutting up the Harrison-only photo with scissors. "I kept the one with you," she said, showing me the version she'd hidden in her backpack. "That's my real family." If only she knew how soon that truth would explode into the open. 3 years ago, on March 7th, 2021, I'd stopped at the 7-Eleven on Pine Street after my shift. The Mega Millions jackpot had climbed to $750 million, and something made me buy a ticket. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was fate. I chose the numbers carefully. 07 for the month Emma was born, 14 for the date, 21 for the year she'd entered my life, 35 for my age, 42 for apartment, 42 where we lived, and Megaball 11, Emma's favorite number. 2 days later, alone in my apartment at 3 a.m., I checked the numbers on my phone, then checked them again. And again. My hands shook so violently I dropped the phone twice. The numbers matched. All of them. After federal taxes, I'd receive $450 million. My first instinct was to call someone, anyone, but then I stopped. I thought about the Harrisons, how they'd suddenly want to be my best friends, how they'd use Emma to get close to the money, how every relationship I had would become poisoned by those 9 digits. So I made a different choice. I claimed the prize through a trust, keeping my name hidden from public records. I hired Catherine Moore, one of Seattle's top estate attorneys, and established the WJ Foundation with an initial funding of $100 million. The rest went into conservative investments and trusts. "Sudden wealth destroys more families than poverty ever could," Catherine had warned me during our first meeting. "Are you sure you want to keep this secret?" I thought about Emma, about teaching her the value of hard work, about knowing who really loved us. "I'm sure," I told her. "Let them show me who they really are first." The email arrived last Tuesday at 11:47 p.m., just as I was finishing my shift at the Emerald Tower. The sender was Catherine Moore, and the subject line made my blood run cold. "Urgent, irregularities in Emma Jackson Trust Fund." I sat in the supply closet, reading on my phone with trembling hands. "Willa, our forensic accountant has discovered serious discrepancies in Emma's trust fund established by her late great-grandmother in 2020. As trustee, Richard Harrison has withdrawn $3.2 million over the past 24 months, transferring funds to Harrison Hotels under the guise of investment opportunities. These transfers appear to violate federal fiduciary laws. More concerning, Richard has initiated paperwork to transfer the remaining $1.8 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The transfer is scheduled for November 18th, 72 hours from now. If completed, recovering these funds becomes nearly impossible. Misappropriation of trust funds carries a federal sentence of up to 10 years. We need to act immediately. I read the attached documents 3 times, each page making me angrier. Bank statements showing massive withdrawals, forged investment documents, Emma's college fund, her future, her security, stolen by her own grandfather to prop up his failing hotels. My phone buzzed with another message from Catherine. I've prepared everything for legal action, but we need concrete evidence of intent. The anniversary gala in 3 days would be the perfect venue for a public revelation. Maximum witnesses, including Judge Patricia Thornton, who'll be attending. Your call. I stared at my reflection in the supply closet mirror. Tired eyes, janitor's uniform, everything the Harrisons thought made me worthless. They had no idea what was coming. Emma had been struggling for months, and I'd watched helplessly as the bullying got worse. Her grades dropped from straight A's to B minuses. She stopped inviting friends over. She quit the debate team she'd loved. Mom, Sophia's mom said you clean toilets, she told me one evening, pushing her spaghetti around her plate. Is that true? I clean office buildings, baby. It's honest work. But you're smart. You read all those business books. You help me with advanced calculus. Her voice cracked. Why do you let them treat you like this when you're smarter than all of them? The question hung between us. How could I explain that I was testing them? That I needed to know if they'd love us without the money? I want to transfer schools, Emma continued. Somewhere nobody knows us. We'll need your grandfather's signature since he controls your education trust, I said carefully. He already said no. He said Evergreen Academy is about maintaining standards, and I should be grateful. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Mom, why does he hate you so much? He doesn't hate me, sweetheart. He hates what I represent, that his son chose someone outside their social circle, that you exist as proof. Sometimes I wish you had a real job, she whispered, then immediately looked stricken. I'm sorry, I didn't mean… I know, baby. I pulled her close. I know exactly what you meant. That night, after Emma fell asleep, I made my decision. She was suffering because of my test. The Harrisons had failed spectacularly, and now they were hurting my daughter. It was time to end this charade. Catherine called me during my lunch break the next day, her voice tense with urgency. Willa, I've been monitoring the situation. Richard just had a meeting with Yamamoto Industries about selling 30% of Harrison Hotels. The deal closes on November 20th. That's 5 days from now. He needs that offshore money to make the books look clean for due diligence. So we have even less time than we thought. Exactly. If we don't act at the gala, Emma's money disappears forever, but there's something else. She paused. I've had my investigator looking into Richard's finances. This isn't his first time. He did the same thing to his brother's children in 2015. Took their trust funds, claimed bad investments, family never pressed charges to avoid scandal. My grip on the phone tightened. How much proof do we have? Everything. Bank records, forged signatures, false investment documents. I've already briefed Judge Thornton informally. She'll be watching for our signal at the gala. Dr. Marcus Thompson from Children's Hospital is ready to announce your donation. The media packets are prepared. We just need you to pull the trigger. I thought about Emma crying in her room, about Margaret calling me the help, about Richard throwing my belongings on the lawn. Sometimes the only way to protect your child is to stop protecting their illusions, I said, echoing what I'd been telling myself for days. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Send me everything. And Catherine, make sure the FBI is ready to move the moment we go public. Already arranged. Willa, are you sure you're ready for this? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at my janitor's uniform hanging in my locker. I've been ready for 3 years. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your child? The decision I made next would change everything for Emma and me. If you're finding value in this story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps me share these important stories about standing up for what's right. Let's continue. Richard called an emergency family meeting at the Harrison Grand Hotel the morning of November 13th. The email came at 6 a.m. Mandatory, Conference Room A, regarding the gala. I arrived to find the entire family assembled, Richard at the head of the table like a king holding court, Margaret beside him, Daniel looking uncomfortable in the corner. I'll make this brief, Richard announced, not even offering me a seat. The anniversary gala is in 2 days. We're expecting 500 guests, including the mayor, the Yamamoto delegation, and every major business leader in Seattle. This event will determine the future of Harrison Hotels. He turned to me with cold eyes. You are not to attend. I'm Emma's mother. She's giving a speech about family legacy. Your profession embarrasses the family, he said flatly. A janitor at the head table would cost us the $200 million deal with Yamamoto. They value presentation and status above all else. Emma needs me there, I said quietly. Emma needs a better role model, Margaret interjected. Someone who understands ambition and success, not someone who's content mopping floors. Daniel finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, this is wrong. Willa is what? Richard snapped. She's nothing. A reminder of your failure to choose an appropriate partner. The help sitting at our family table, the investors would walk out. I stood slowly, maintaining eye contact with Richard. So, I'm banned from my daughter's important night because you're ashamed of honest work? You're banned because you're an embarrassment, he said simply. Accept it, or we'll revisit the custody arrangement. I'm sure the courts would be interested to know Emma's mother can barely afford rent. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. The confrontation escalated quickly, words flying like knives across the conference table. I'm Emma's mother, I stated firmly. Barely, Richard shot back. I have rights. You have nothing, Margaret sneered. Nothing but a mop and a bucket and a daughter who's embarrassed to bring friends home. This is wrong, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. This is business, Richard countered. Something you'd understand if you'd done anything with that brain of yours besides waste it. Emma needs me there. She asked me to be there. Emma needs a better role model, someone successful, someone who matters. I felt my hands clench into fists under the table. You'll regret this. Richard actually laughed. Is that a threat from the janitor? What are you going to do, refuse to clean our offices? Oh wait, you don't even clean our buildings. You're not qualified for that level. Know your place, Willa, Margaret added, examining her manicured nails. You're lucky we even let you see Emma. Most families would have cut you off completely after the divorce. Dad, stop, Daniel pleaded weakly. This has gone too far. What's gone too far is this charade, Richard stood, towering over me. You want to know the truth? Every time Emma sees you in that pathetic uniform, she dies a little inside. Every time her friends ask about her mother's job, she lies. You're not protecting her by staying in her life, you're humiliating her. The words hit exactly where he intended, but I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just stared at him with calm eyes, memorizing this moment. Are we done here? I asked quietly. Almost. He smiled coldly. Security will escort you out. Margaret reached into her designer purse and pulled out a check, sliding it across the conference table toward me. The amount read $50,000. This is more than you make in 2 years, she said with a practiced smile. Take it. Move to another state. Start fresh. Find a nice janitor to marry. Emma can visit you during summers once she's older and understands why this was necessary. I picked up the check, examining it carefully. And in exchange, you sign away any informal visitation rights. You don't contest when we enroll Emma in boarding school in Switzerland next year. You don't show up at family events. You fade away quietly. Like I never existed, I said. Exactly. Be smart for once, Willa. This money could change your life. Daniel stood abruptly. Mom, you can't buy her off like she's some... Like she's what? Richard interrupted. An employee? That's essentially what she is. Someone who provides a service, in this case being Emma's biological mother, for which we've been more than generous. I stood slowly, leaving the check on the table. I need to think about it. The offer expires at midnight tomorrow, Richard said. After that, our lawyers handle everything. And trust me, you can't afford to fight us. I walked to the door, pausing before I left. You know what the saddest part is? Emma loves you. Despite everything, she loves her grandparents. She won't after tomorrow night. As I walked out, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Catherine. It's time. The response came immediately. Everything's ready. See you at the gala. The Harrisons thought they'd won. They had no idea they'd just signed their own destruction. The next morning, I met with Dr. Marcus Thompson and 3 board members from Seattle Children's Hospital at a private dining room in the Four Seasons. They didn't know me as Willa the janitor. To them, I was Ms. Jackson, CEO of the WJ Foundation. The Harrison family has been courting us for 6 months, Dr. Thompson said, adjusting his glasses. They've promised a $10 million donation, but keep finding excuses to delay. Meanwhile, you're offering $50 million with no strings attached? The only string, I said, sliding the contract across the table, is timing. I want the announcement made at tomorrow's gala, public prominent with full media coverage. That's unusual, one board member noted. The Harrisons specifically requested to be our largest donor at that event. They'll be shocked when they learn who their real benefactor is, I smiled. I need you to trust me. This donation is real, the money is already in escrow, and tomorrow night Seattle Children's Hospital gets the largest single donation in its history. Dr. Thompson reviewed the papers, his eyes widening. Everything's in order. The funds are verified. Ms. Jackson, I don't understand. Why maintain such secrecy until tomorrow? Because sometimes the best way to help children is to show them that true power doesn't come from inherited wealth or family names. It comes from choosing to do good when no one's watching. And you want the announcement at exactly 9 p.m.? Right after Richard Harrison's keynote speech, I'll be in the audience. When you call me up, act like it's the first time we're meeting publicly. Dr. Thompson extended his hand. Ms. Jackson, you have a deal. Tomorrow night, we make history. If only he knew how much history we'd actually be making. Catherine Moore's law office occupied the entire 38th floor of the Emerald Tower, 3 floors below where I cleaned every night. She'd been working around the clock, and it showed in the boxes of evidence covering her conference table. The forensic accounting is complete, she said, spreading out documents. Richard Harrison has systematically drained Emma's trust fund through fraudulent transfers. Look at these. The paper showed a clear pattern. Fake invoices for investment consulting, property that didn't exist, returns that never materialized. $3.2 million stolen from a 12-year-old girl by her own grandfather. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit has been investigating Harrison hotels for 6 months based on my tips, Catherine continued. They were waiting for concrete evidence. This is it. The moment you go public, they move in. And the media packets? 50 folders prepared for the major outlets. Each contains copies of the embezzlement evidence, your lottery win documentation, and a timeline of the Harrison family's treatment of you. The Seattle Times already has a reporter assigned to the gala specifically to watch the Harrisons. She pulled out another document. There's something else. Daniel came to see me yesterday. I looked up sharply. What? He's been documenting his father's crimes for 2 years. He wants to testify. He says he's tired of being a coward. And you believe him? I believe the recordings he provided, Richard admitting to the theft, planning to blame bad investments if caught. It's all here. She tapped a USB drive. Your ex-husband might be weak, but he's not evil. He wants to do right by Emma. I stared at the mountain of evidence. Once we start this, there's no stopping it, Catherine finished. Are you ready? I've been ready for 3 years. Emma found me in my apartment after school, her backpack dropped carelessly by the door. She looked older than her 12 years, worry etched into features that reminded me painfully of Daniel's better qualities. Mom, I need to ask you something, she said, sitting beside me on our worn couch. And I need you to tell me the truth. Always, baby. I heard Grandpa on the phone yesterday. He was panicking about someone named WJ. He said WJ is going to ruin everything and we can't let WJ near the gala. Then Grandma said something about WJ having more money than God. She paused, studying my face. Mom, are you WJ? I took her hands in mine, feeling their slight tremor. What makes you think that? Because you're the only person who scares them. Not Dad, not their lawyers, not even the mayor. Just you. And you're different lately. Calmer, like you're waiting for something. You're very observant. Mom, please. I know you're hiding something big. I see you reading those financial documents when you think I'm asleep. I found the business card for Catherine Moore, one of Seattle's most expensive lawyers. Janitors don't have lawyers like that unless… Unless what? Unless they're not really janitors. Her green eyes searched mine. Mom, are you rich? Is that why you're not worried about their threats? I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Baby, after tomorrow night, no one will ever disrespect you or me again. I promise you that. So you are WJ? Tomorrow night, sweetheart. Everything becomes clear tomorrow night. But tonight, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She nodded against my shoulder. I love you, Mom. Janitor or CEO or whatever you are. I love you too, baby. More than all the money in the world. The morning of November 15th started with Richard's final act of cruelty. I'd gone to the Harrison mansion to collect Emma's dress for the gala, hoping to slip in and out quietly. Instead, I found Richard on the front lawn with an audience of at least 10 neighbors, their phones already recording. Perfect timing, Willa, he announced loudly. We're just clearing out some trash. My personal belongings, photos from my marriage, Emma's baby books, even Christmas ornaments we'd collected as a family, were scattered across the manicured lawn. Security guards stood ready, as if I were some kind of threat. These are Emma's things too, I said calmly, kneeling to pick up a photo of her first birthday. Janitor belongings on the curb where they belong, Richard proclaimed to his audience. This is what happens when you don't know your station in life. Margaret emerged from the house carrying my old jewelry box, a gift from Daniel's grandmother. She opened it theatrically, dumping the contents onto the grass. Costume jewelry, how fitting. The neighbors whispered among themselves, phones capturing every humiliating second. I recognized most of them from school events, charity galas, the country club Daniel still attended. But Mrs. Thompson from next door stepped forward. Richard, this is unnecessary. It's necessary to maintain standards, Patricia. You'll understand when your daughter brings home someone inappropriate. I continued gathering items in silence, my movements deliberate and dignified. Each photo, each memory collected with the same care I used cleaning office buildings. Let them record. Let them watch. In 8 hours, these same people would witness something very different. Security, check her bags, Margaret ordered. Make sure she hasn't taken anything valuable. The guards reluctantly searched through Emma's baby clothes and family photos while 20 people watched. The security guards emptied my bags onto the driveway, pawing through Emma's baby shoes and the photo albums I'd tried to save. Margaret stood over them like a supervisor pointing at items. Check that frame. It looks like real silver. And that book, make sure she didn't hide anything inside. Mrs. Harrison, the head of security said uncomfortably, there's nothing here but personal items. Check everything. We can't trust someone of her background. The way she said background made it clear she meant more than my job. One neighbor was live streaming now, narrating to her followers. Drama at the Harrison mansion. The ex-daughter-in-law is being searched like a criminal. Richard stepped closer to me. This is what Emma sees. Her mother, on her knees in our driveway, being searched for stealing. How do you think that makes her feel? I looked up at the house and saw her. Emma at her bedroom window, tears streaming down her face, her phone pressed against the glass recording everything. Our eyes met for a moment before Margaret noticed. Emma! Get away from that window right now! But Emma didn't move. She kept recording, kept watching, kept crying. Daniel's car screeched into the driveway. He jumped out, his face red with anger. "What the hell is going on here?" "We're protecting our property," Richard said coldly. "From what? Mom's baby photos?" Daniel grabbed the security guard's arm. "Stop this, now." "You're too late to play hero," Richard said. "As usual." The head of security straightened up. "There's nothing inappropriate here, Mr. Harrison, just family items." "Then she can take her trash and leave," Richard announced. "And don't come back. Ever." The crowd dispersed slowly, their phones full of footage that would soon go viral for reasons none of them expected. As I loaded the scattered belongings into my car, Emma's text arrived. "I hate them." I typed back carefully. "Tomorrow, my love." Daniel helped me carry the last box, his hands shaking with suppressed rage. "Willa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this years ago." "You're trying to stop it now. That matters." "Dad's lost his mind. This deal with Yamamoto has him desperate. He's been moving money around, hiding debts. The hotel chain is in trouble, and he's using Emma's money to cover it up." I paused, studying his face. "You know about the trust fund?" "I've known for 6 months. I've been documenting everything, recording conversations. I went to a lawyer, Catherine Moore. She said you're her client too. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I'm a coward," he said simply. "Because standing up to him meant losing everything, my job, my inheritance, my family. But watching him do this to you, to Emma, I can't anymore." Emma appeared at the front door, Margaret gripping her shoulder. "Say goodbye to your mother, Emma. After tonight's gala, you'll be too busy with your new life to see her much." Emma broke free and ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. "Mom, please don't leave me here." "Baby, listen to me," I whispered in her ear. "Tonight at the gala, everything changes. When you see me, don't be surprised. Just trust me." "Dad, you've gone too far," Daniel shouted at Richard. "This is Emma's mother." "And after tonight, that won't matter anymore," Richard replied coldly. "Get in the house, Emma. Now." As I drove away, I saw Mrs. Thompson in my rearview mirror, shaking her head at Richard. She'd be at the gala tonight, too. They all would be. Richard's final ultimatum came via Margaret, who stood on their marble steps like a queen addressing a peasant. The neighbors might have dispersed, but their security cameras were still recording. "You are permanently banned from this property," she announced. "Richard is filing a restraining order first thing Monday morning. After tomorrow's gala, which you will not attend, Emma begins her new life." "What new life?" I asked, though I already knew. "La Rosie in Switzerland, the finest boarding school in the world. She'll spend holidays with us, summers in our Hamptons house, away from your toxic influence." "You can't just send her away. I have joint custody." Richard emerged from the house, his phone in hand. "Your custody agreement states Emma must maintain her current standard of education and living. Can you afford $45,000 a year for Evergreen? Can you afford any private school? No? Then the court will side with us." "She needs her mother." "She needs a future," he countered, "not a cautionary tale about wasted potential." "Enjoy your last night of thinking you matter, Willa. After tomorrow, Emma will be surrounded by the right people, successful people, people who can actually give her opportunities." I looked him straight in the eye and smiled, a small, knowing smile that made him step back. "Enjoy your last night of thinking you've won, Richard." "Is that supposed to be a threat?" "No," I said, getting into my 10-year-old Honda. "It's a promise." As I drove away, I saw him in my mirror, standing on his perfect lawn in front of his perfect mansion, secure in his perfect arrogance. He had no idea that in less than 5 hours, his perfect world would come crashing down at the very event meant to celebrate his success. The countdown had begun. The Harrison family thought they had destroyed me completely. They had no idea that in less than 24 hours, their entire world would crumble at their own anniversary gala. If you've ever dreamed of seeing karma catch up with bullies, you need to see what happens next. Please like this video if you're enjoying the story and comment below. Have you ever hidden your success from toxic family? November 15th, 8 p.m. The Harrison Grand downtown glowed like a jewel against Seattle's skyline. Valet attendants scrambled as a matte black Bugatti Chiron pulled up to the entrance, a $3 million statement on wheels that none of them had ever seen in person. I stepped out in a $30,000 Versace gown, custom-tailored in midnight blue with subtle gold threading that caught the light with every movement. The valet's hand trembled as I handed him the keys. "Be careful with her," I said. "She's temperamental." Security moved to intercept me at the door, the same men who'd searched my belongings this morning. The head of security, Marcus, stopped dead when he saw the invitation I presented. "CEO, WJ Foundation," he read aloud, his voice cracking. Ms. Jackson?" "Good evening, Marcus. I believe the mayor is expecting me." As if on cue, Mayor Patricia Coleman appeared in the lobby, her face lighting up with recognition. "Willa, I've been hoping to meet you properly. Your foundation's work with the homeless initiative has been extraordinary." The security team parted like the Red Sea. Marcus actually bowed slightly, his face pale with recognition of his morning's actions. "Shall we go in?" the mayor asked, linking her arm through mine. "Richard Harrison has no idea what an honor it is to have you here. That man always was too focused on old money to recognize new power." As we walked toward the ballroom, I heard Marcus frantically whispering into his radio. "Code situation. The janitor. She's not. Just let her through. Let everything through." The grand entrance was about to become a grand reckoning. The ballroom doors opened to reveal 500 of Seattle's elite champagne glasses catching the light from massive crystal chandeliers. The orchestra was mid-waltz when the music suddenly stopped, the conductor's baton frozen in mid-air as he stared at the entrance. The silence rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Whispers rose and fell. "Who is that? Is that Versace? She came with the mayor?" At the head table, Richard and Margaret Harrison stood frozen like ice sculptures. Richard's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Margaret gripped the table for support, her perfectly composed face cracking like a mask. "Mom!" Emma broke free from her grandparents' table, her green dress flying behind her as she ran across the ballroom. She threw her arms around me, not caring that everyone was watching, not caring that her grandparents were gesturing frantically for her to return. "You look beautiful, Mom," she whispered against my shoulder, "like a queen." "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor announced, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. "Please welcome one of Seattle's most generous philanthropists, Ms. Willa Jackson, of the WJ Foundation." The name hit the room like thunder. WJ Foundation, the mysterious organization that had donated millions to Seattle's hospitals, schools, and homeless programs. The foundation the Harrisons had been desperately courting for months. Daniel stood abruptly at his table, his face a mixture of shock and something that looked like pride. "Willa?" I walked through the ballroom with Emma's hand in mine, past the very people who'd avoided me at school functions, past the investors who'd laughed at Richard's jokes about his unfortunate ex-daughter-in-law, past 3 years of humiliation, and straight toward the head table. "Hello, Richard," I said pleasantly. "Lovely party." Dr. Marcus Thompson chose that moment to take the microphone, his timing impeccable. The screens around the ballroom lit up with the Seattle Children's Hospital logo. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with tonight's celebration, I have an extraordinary announcement. This afternoon, Seattle Children's Hospital received the largest single donation in our institution's history." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Richard straightened, a smug smile beginning to form. He'd been promising a $10 million donation all evening. $50 million, Dr. Thompson continued, and Richard's smile vanished. "This transformative gift will fund our new pediatric cancer wing, provide free treatment for thousands of uninsured children, and establish the Emma Jackson Center for Childhood Development." The Emma Jackson Center. My daughter's name on a building. Emma gasped beside me, her hand squeezing mine. "Please join me in thanking our incredible benefactor." Dr. Thompson raised his champagne glass toward me. Ms. Willa Jackson, CEO of the WJ Foundation, whose assets exceed $100 million in charitable giving. The giant screens displayed the signed contract, the check, and a photo of me with the hospital board from this morning. Margaret Harrison collapsed into her chair, requiring immediate medical attention from a guest who happened to be a doctor. I walked to the stage, each step measured and deliberate. The same woman they'd called the help yesterday. The same woman they'd searched for stealing this morning. The same woman they'd banned from their lives. "Thank you, Dr. Thompson," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and clear. "I've had the privilege of working as a janitor at the Emerald Tower for the past 3 years. It's honest work that I'm proud of. What many of you don't know is that 3 years ago, I won the Mega Millions lottery, $450 million after taxes." The room erupted. Phones appeared, recording everything. Several investors at the Yamamoto table were frantically texting, their eyes moving between me and Richard. I kept working because I wanted my daughter to understand the value of hard work, and perhaps, I looked directly at Richard, to see people's true character when they think you have nothing to offer them. I stood at the podium, 500 pairs of eyes fixed on me, the weight of 3 years of silence finally lifting from my shoulders. "Money doesn't change who you are," I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the hushed ballroom. "It reveals who you've always been. For 3 years, I've watched how people treat someone they consider beneath them. I've been called the help, been searched for stealing silverware, been banned from family photographs. On the screens, photos appeared, security footage from this morning's humiliation, screenshots from the neighborhood Facebook page mocking me, even the Christmas card showing both versions, with and without me. But I've also seen extraordinary kindness from unexpected places. My colleagues at the Emerald Tower who shared their lunches when they thought I couldn't afford my own. Teachers at Evergreen Academy who privately tutored Emma for free, thinking I couldn't pay. The neighbors who stood up for me despite social pressure. Mrs. Thompson from the Harrisons' neighborhood raised her glass toward me, tears in her eyes. I established the WJ Foundation to give back to this community, to support those who work hard but struggle to get ahead. Every dollar has gone to help real people with real needs, not to maintain appearances or buy social status, but to make actual change. Richard stood abruptly, his face purple with rage. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly—" "Mr. Harrison," I interrupted calmly, "I believe you've been trying to contact WJ Foundation for months about a donation. My assistant has your 47 emails, 16 gift baskets, and 3 offers for board positions in exchange for funding. All rejected, of course." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Several board members from Harrison Hotels shifted uncomfortably. "My daughter Emma has taught me what really matters," I continued, looking at my beautiful girl. "She loved me when I was married to her father, and she loved me just as much when I was cleaning offices. That's real wealth, being loved for who you are, not what you have." The Yamamoto investors were openly frowning at Richard now, whispering among themselves. The deal was crumbling before his eyes. Catherine Moore stepped onto the stage, her presence commanding immediate attention. In her hands were documents that would destroy the Harrison empire. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Catherine Moore, attorney for Ms. Jackson and Emma Jackson. What I'm about to reveal involves federal crimes that cannot go unaddressed." The screens changed to display bank statements, forensic accounting reports, and a timeline of theft. Richard tried to move toward the exit, but security, the same security who'd searched me this morning, blocked his path. Richard Harrison, as trustee of Emma Jackson's $5 million trust fund, has embezzled $3.2 million over the past 24 months. These funds, left by Emma's great-grandmother, were systematically stolen to cover Harrison Hotel's mounting debts. Gasps and outcries filled the room. Phones were recording from every angle. The Seattle Times reporter was typing furiously. "The evidence is irrefutable," Catherine continued. "Forged documents, fraudulent transfers, false investment reports. The FBI has been notified and will be executing warrants tomorrow morning." "This is lies," Richard shouted. I invested that money for Emma's future. Into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands? Catherine asked, displaying the transfer documents. Scheduled for permanent transfer in less than 48 hours? Margaret fainted again, this time requiring actual paramedics. The Yamamoto delegation stood as one and walked out, their contempt evident. $200 million walked out with them. Mr. Harrison, Catherine announced, you have 24 hours to return the funds in full before federal charges are filed. Embezzlement, wire fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. You're looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Daniel stood up at his table. I have recordings, Dad. 2 years of recordings. Every admission, every crime, I'm testifying. Richard's face went from purple to white. He looked around the room for allies and found none. The ballroom erupted into chaos. The Yamamoto investors were already at the door, their lead representative turning back to announce, Harrison Hotels can forget any partnership with Yamamoto Industries. We do not associate with criminals. Board members from Harrison Hotels surrounded Richard like sharks smelling blood. Emergency meeting now, shouted Patricia Blackwell, the lead independent director. Richard, your resignation, tonight, or we call the shareholders. Margaret, revived but hysterical, grabbed at my dress. Please, Willa, please, we didn't mean it. We're Emma's family. You threw my belongings on your lawn this morning, I said quietly. You called me trash. You tried to steal my daughter and her inheritance. The company will collapse, she wailed. 15 hotels, thousands of employees. The company will survive, Daniel said, stepping forward. Under new management. Ethical management. He looked at his father. I've already spoken to the board. They're prepared to name me interim CEO, conditional on full cooperation with authorities and immediate restitution of Emma's trust. You, Richard snarled at his son. You pathetic, weak. I'm the one who documented your crimes, Daniel said firmly. I'm the one with the recordings. I'm the one trying to save what's left of our family's reputation. 3 board members physically restrained Richard as he lunged toward Daniel. Security moved in, Marcus, who'd searched my bags this morning, now reading Richard his rights as a citizen's arrest for attempted assault. This is your fault, Richard screamed at me. You did this. No, I said calmly. You did this the moment you decided to steal from a 12-year-old child. I just made sure everyone knew about it. The Seattle Times photographer captured the moment perfectly. Richard Harrison, patriarch of an empire, being escorted out of his own gala in disgrace. My legal team moved with precision, serving papers before the guests could even process what they'd witnessed. Catherine's associates spread through the ballroom like a well-orchestrated dance. Mr. Harrison, Catherine announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're being served with multiple actions. Petition for immediate return of embezzled funds. Motion for full custody of Emma Jackson to her mother. Restraining order preventing you from coming within 500 feet of either Ms. Jackson or Emma. The court officer who'd been quietly waiting in the corner stepped forward with official documents. These orders are effective immediately, signed by Judge Patricia Thornton 1 hour ago. Judge Thornton herself stood from her table, her voice carrying judicial authority even at a social event. I reviewed the evidence this afternoon. It's overwhelming. Mr. Harrison, I suggest you get a very good lawyer. Additionally, Catherine continued, Harrison Hotels accounts are frozen pending investigation. The only way to unfreeze them is immediate restitution of the stolen funds. Richard's lawyer, who'd been enjoying the free champagne, went pale. Richard, they can't just… They can and they did, Catherine cut him off. Federal jurisdiction, interstate wire fraud. The FBI will be at your offices at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Emma stood beside me, her head high. Grandpa, Grandma, you stole from me. You tried to send me away. You hurt my mom every single day for 3 years. Her young voice carried surprising strength. I choose to live with my mother. Forever. Margaret reached toward Emma with shaking hands. Sweetheart, we're your grandparents. No, Emma said firmly. Grandparents don't steal from children. Grandparents don't call their daughter-in-law the help. You're nothing to me now. The room absorbed this final blow in stunned silence. Emma walked to the microphone, her 12-year-old frame suddenly seeming taller, stronger. The room fell silent, everyone leaning in to hear what the child at the center of this storm would say. "My name is Emma Jackson," she began, her voice clear and steady. "My mother is Willa Jackson. She cleans offices at the Emerald Tower, and I'm proud of her." I felt tears prick my eyes as she continued. "For 3 years, I watched my grandparents treat her like she was nothing. They told me to be embarrassed. They told me she was a failure. They tried to make me ashamed of the woman who worked 16-hour days to make sure I had everything I needed." She looked directly at Richard and Margaret. "But my mom taught me real values. She taught me that money without kindness is worthless, that power without compassion is empty, that family isn't about blood or bank accounts, it's about who shows up for you every single day." The audience was captivated. Several people were openly crying. "I know now that my mom had millions of dollars. She could have quit her job, could have thrown money at every problem, could have destroyed my grandparents years ago. Instead, she kept working. She kept teaching me. She kept loving me exactly the same." Emma turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, you're the richest person here. Not in money, but in character. And I choose you. I will always choose you." She ran to me, and I caught her in my arms as the ballroom erupted in applause. Even some of the Harrison Hotel's board members were clapping, tears in their eyes. "I love you, baby," I whispered. "I know, Mom. I've always known." Within 2 hours, the story exploded across every platform. "Janitor Millionaire" began trending worldwide before we even left the gala. A guest's livestream of my reveal had 3 million views and climbing. The Seattle Times pushed out a breaking news alert. "Seattle janitors 420 Fenninum, secret rocks high society. Harrison empire crumbles." CNN picked it up within minutes, followed by Fox, NBC, and every major outlet. Twitter was on fire. "This is better than any movie," one viral tweet read, accompanied by a photo of Richard being escorted out. "Woman hides $450 million while scrubbing toilets just to expose toxic in-laws. Queen behavior." Harrison Hotel's stock price plummeted 40% in after-hours trading. Financial analysts were already predicting bankruptcy without the Yamamoto deal and with frozen assets. CNBC ran an emergency segment. "The Fall of Harrison Hotels, a family drama turned financial disaster." The footage from this morning's humiliation, me being searched on the lawn, was being played side by side with video of me in Versace at the gala. The contrast was devastating. "From trash to treasure, the ultimate revenge," read the New York Post headline. Richard's photos became instant memes. His shocked face when I was announced as WJ Foundation's CEO was already captioned 1,000 different ways. "When karma has your home address, that moment you realize you played yourself. Find someone who looks at you the way Richard Harrison looks at consequences." Local news stationed reporters outside the Harrison Mansion, the Emerald Tower, and Seattle Children's Hospital. Dr. Thompson gave interviews praising the donation and confirming that yes, the janitor who cleaned nearby offices was their largest benefactor ever. By midnight, the video had 50 million views across platforms. The world was watching Seattle's elite learn what happened when you treated the wrong person like garbage. The business collapse was swift and merciless. By Monday morning, 8 major hotel chains had announced they were terminating partnerships with Harrison Hotels, citing ethical concerns and reputational risk. 3 board members resigned immediately via email. Their messages leaked to the press within hours. "Cannot in good conscience continue association with criminal enterprise," wrote Patricia Blackwell. 2 more followed by lunch. The staff exodus began with Harrison Hotel's CFO, who walked out Sunday morning with 2 boxes and a resignation letter that simply said, "I refuse to cook books for crooks." By Tuesday, 17 key employees had quit, many citing Richard's treatment of workers and the toxic culture he'd created. Margaret was removed from every charity board she sat on. The Seattle Art Museum, Children's Foundation, and Symphony all issued identical statements. We cannot associate with individuals who steal from children. The country club revoked both Harrison memberships, posting the decision on their bulletin board for all members to see. Former employees came forward with their own horror stories. A supervisor Richard had fired for refusing to falsify records. A janitor Margaret had accused of theft to avoid paying a Christmas bonus. The stories painted a pattern of abuse that went back decades. "The family that treated workers like dirt is now buried in it," tweeted a former Harrison Hotel's manager, alongside her own story of being belittled and underpaid. Even their neighbors distanced themselves. The same people who'd watched my humiliation that morning now told reporters they'd always suspected something was off about the Harrisons. Mrs. Thompson gave an interview describing the morning's events as the most disgusting display of classism I've ever witnessed. Daniel, to his credit, held a press conference announcing massive reforms, minimum wage increases, employee profit sharing, and a complete restructuring of company culture. "My father's way dies today," he declared. The FBI raids began at dawn on November 17th. Federal agents swarmed Harrison Hotel's corporate offices, carrying out boxes of documents while news helicopters circled overhead. Richard's arrest was methodical and public. Agents walked him out in handcuffs as cameras rolled. The perp walk was everything the media hoped for. Richard, still in his wrinkled tuxedo from 2 nights before, stumbling down the courthouse steps. His lawyer tried to shield him from cameras, but there was no escaping the wall of press. "Mr. Harrison, did you steal from your granddaughter? How does it feel to lose everything? Was humiliating your ex-daughter-in-law worth federal prison?" Bail was set at $5 million. Cruel irony, since that was exactly what Emma's full trust should have been. With assets frozen, Richard couldn't make bail without selling the mansion, which he was forced to do within 48 hours. The buyer? One of my foundation's subsidiaries, which would convert it into transitional housing for homeless families. "The man who called me worthless is now worth less than nothing," I told Catherine when she delivered the news. The federal prosecutor announced 15 charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy, and more. Each carried significant prison time. "Mr. Harrison faces a minimum of 10 years, likely 15 to 20, she stated at the press conference. Margaret, broken and humiliated, was forced to move into a small apartment in Tacoma. The woman who'd spent decades cultivating her image as Seattle society's queen was now radioactive. No charity would take her calls. No club would admit her. No friend would acknowledge her. Richard's mugshot became the most shared image in Seattle Times history. The headline simply read, "Fallen." Support poured in from unexpected places. The Janitors Union announced a scholarship in my name for children of service workers, raising $100,000 in the first week. "Willa Jackson proved that dignity isn't determined by your job title," the union president said at the announcement. Seattle's mayor offered me a position on the Economic Council. "We need voices that understand both struggle and success," she said publicly. Ms. Jackson's unique perspective would be invaluable. My colleagues at the Emerald Tower threw a celebration that made the news. Over 100 night shift workers gathered in the lobby, holding signs reading, "Proud to work with Willa," and "Janitors are essential." Many shared stories of my kindness over the years, covering shifts, sharing lunches, listening to problems. Mrs. Thompson from the Harrisons' neighborhood arrived at my apartment with flowers and an apology. "I should have spoken up sooner. We all knew how they treated you. Your courage gave us permission to stop pretending it was acceptable." Even some Harrison relatives reached out. Daniel's aunt Sarah called from Portland. "We knew Richard was stealing from the trust. We were too scared to speak up. He controlled everything. Thank you for being braver than we were." Former Harrison Hotel's employees created a support group, sharing stories of Richard's abuse and Margaret's condescension. Several revealed they'd suspected financial crimes but feared retaliation. Willa gave us a voice, one wrote. She showed us that bullies only have the power we give them. The security guard Marcus, who'd searched my bags, sent a formal apology letter and a donation to Emma's education fund. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. I'm ashamed and inspired by your grace under pressure. Daniel requested to meet at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop downtown where we'd once planned our future together. He looked older, worn down by the last week's revelations, but also somehow more solid, more real. Willa, I need to apologize, not just for this week or this year, but for everything. For being a coward during our marriage, for letting my parents control our lives, for failing you and Emma every single day since. Daniel, please, let me finish. I see now why you hid the money. We all failed your test of character. Spectacularly. My parents showed their greed and I showed my weakness. Again. He pulled out documents. Therapy appointment confirmations, custody agreements, financial waivers. I've started seeing a therapist, twice a week. I need to understand why I let them treat you that way, why I never stood up for my own family. That's a good start, I said carefully. I'm signing away any claim to your wealth. I don't want a penny. I'm also requesting supervised visitation with Emma until the therapist says I'm ready. I need to earn the right to be her father again. And your parents? I'll testify against my father. Fully. He stole from his granddaughter. There's no forgiveness for that. As for my mother, he paused. She's broken, Willa. Completely broken. But that's not your problem to solve. No, it's not. He stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, you look happy. Really happy. For the first time since I've known you, you look free. I am free, I replied. We all are now. He nodded and walked away, shoulders straighter than I'd seen them in years. Maybe Daniel would finally become the man I'd once thought I'd married. Emma thrived in ways I'd never imagined possible. Within a week of the gala, she'd transformed from an anxious, apologetic child into someone who walked with her head high and her voice clear. We transferred her to Seattle Progressive Academy, a school that valued character over connections. On her first day, she introduced herself simply. I'm Emma Jackson. My mom's a janitor and a philanthropist, both matter. She started a foundation of her own, Kids of Essential Workers, providing scholarships and support for children whose parents worked in service industries. The launch event raised $50,000 in 2 hours. Mom, you taught me money means nothing if you lose yourself getting it, she told me as we reviewed the foundation's first applications. These kids deserve the same chances I got, without the toxic grandparents. Her therapy sessions were helping her process the trauma of the last 3 years. I kept thinking it was my fault, she admitted one evening, that if I was better, smarter, more like them, they'd treat you better. Dr. Chen says that's called transferred shame. She chose to legally change her name to just Emma Jackson, dropping Harrison completely. That's not who I am, she said firmly. I'm your daughter. Period. The book she decided to write, My Mom, the Millionaire Janitor, already had publishers interested. It's not about revenge, she explained to potential editors. It's about seeing people for who they really are, not what they have. When asked at school about her grandparents, she had a practiced response. They made choices that removed them from my life. I wish them healing, but from a distance. The girl who'd once cried about her mother's job now brought me lunch at the Emerald Tower, proud to be seen with me in my uniform. The WJ Foundation expanded to $200 million in assets after I added another $100 million from my personal funds. We focused on supporting working families, funding education for service workers' children, and improving working conditions in buildings across Seattle. I bought the Emerald Tower, the entire building, for $80 million. My first act as owner was to raise every service worker's wage by 50% and institute profit sharing. The janitors I'd worked alongside for 3 years cried when I announced it. You could have left us behind, Marcus, my shift supervisor, said. Most people would have. You never left me behind, I reminded him. When you thought I couldn't afford lunch, you shared yours. That's worth more than any salary increase. I kept visiting monthly, sometimes picking up a mop and joining the crew. It kept me grounded, reminded me where I'd been and why I'd stayed. The executive tenants who once ignored me now nodded respectfully, knowing their building owner might be the one emptying their trash. The foundation created a program specifically for single working mothers, providing childcare, education grants, and emergency support. 300 families enrolled in the first month. I dated James, a teacher from Emma's new school who'd known me as Emma's janitor mom, before learning about the money. He'd brought me coffee during a parent-teacher conference saying, "You look like you could use this more than me." That simple kindness, offered when he thought I had nothing, told me everything. I kept my soul by keeping my secret, I told a reporter who asked why I'd hidden the money for so long. Now I keep my purpose by sharing my wealth. We were considering adopting siblings from foster care, children who, like Emma had been, needed someone to see their worth beyond circumstances. 1 year later, the landscape had completely changed. Richard sat in federal prison, serving 12 years after a plea deal. His letters to Emma went unanswered, returned to sender with "no longer at this address" stamped across them. Margaret lived in an assisted living facility in Tacoma, her mental health having deteriorated after losing everything. Daniel paid for her care but visited rarely, their relationship forever fractured by her choices. Daniel had rebuilt Harrison Hotels from the ground up, renaming it Emerald Hospitality and instituting worker-first policies that became a model for the industry. He saw Emma once a month, supervised visits that were slowly healing their relationship. "I'm learning to be the father she deserves," he told me during a handoff. "Thank you for not giving up on that possibility." Emma and I lived in a modest 5-bedroom house in Queen Anne, nice but not ostentatious. We hosted dinner every Sunday for friends who'd supported us during the dark years, the table full of janitors, teachers, and neighbors who'd shown kindness when they thought we had nothing. "Money amplifies character," I told Emma as we prepared for another Sunday dinner. "It doesn't create it." The boundaries we'd established held firm. No contact with Richard or Margaret, no obligation to forgive or forget, no guilt about protecting our peace. I learned that true wealth is the ability to walk away from those who only see your value in dollars, I wrote in my journal that night. It's knowing that the person scrubbing floors might be worth more than the person walking on them. It's teaching your child that respect isn't earned by bank accounts, but by how you treat people who can do nothing for you. The Harrisons had taught me that, just not the way they'd intended. Thank you for joining me on this journey from humiliation to vindication. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by their job title or bank account. Comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever hidden your success to test someone's character? Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you accept. Until next time, know your worth.